my grandfather had said there is an ancient kauri buried under the ground that's many thousands of years old. But it's been isolated here for 176 million years. It's seen ice ages, it's seen all sorts of planetary changes. It was across the whole nation at one time, and the oceans are full of it off the west coast for probably 100 miles, but the coast is slowly eroding. What prompted me to work in the kauri is one, I've always had a great love for it, and the stories of it and my experiences with it were phenomenal. To be an artist, you're a communicator, and if you have nothing to communicate, then you can't be an artist. I searched the planet for one medium I could work in that would communicate to all, and in a different way. The timber was a living fibre. It's one being talking to another. It's the communication of the tree directly to you in the form that it's in. I'm just blessed to be able to configure into the forms that people find pleasant. I arrived at the perfect medium to communicate to mankind. Now, that sounds like I'm big-headed, but I always had the vision that someday I would not be so much famous, but the work that I'd made would impinge on people and communicate the truths and the stories.
In the beginning there was no sky, no sea, no earth, and no gods. There was only darkness. From this nothingness came Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, and Ranginui, the Sky Father. The children of the two were locked in their parents' embrace, in eternal darkness, and yearned to see some light. Tane's brothers said to him, "Let us kill our father, because he shut us up in darkness." However, Tane Mahuta did not share their view.
"Do not let us kill our father," he advised.
but rather let us raise him up above, so that there may be light. All children agreed with him. Then Tane Mahuta rose. Strong as the kauri tree, he placed his shoulders against his mother Papa and his feet against his father Rangi, and he pushed hard as his parents cried in pain. Finally, Tane managed to separate them. And for the first time the children saw the light of the day. Rangi dwelt above. And Tane with his brothers dwelt below, with their mother Papa.
The myth is important because it's anchored somewhere in truth, and that's what carving and sculpting does. It makes a living history, and we draw on the past to teach us things to avoid in the future. It's only with modern man that we've said that carving is an art form. And amongst tribal people, you kind of make symbology as like a standard sort of a way of communicating. We have a basic spiral, and that would be the expansion of knowledge, of the universe, of all things. It is said that when a child is conceived, that it unfurls from a spiral. It's really good that that's so, because it covers all of life, right down to the mathematical equation of the Fibonacci curve, where you cut a shell in half and it's perfect. In nature, the spiral is present in many, many things. Our great ancestor Maori fished the North Island out of the sea. So the hook is very important for us. It's about capturing abundance, all the good things in your life. Now the hook comes in many forms. It comes in the basic shape of a hook, or it could just intimate a hook. It may have a spiral instead of a barb. It may have a whale's tail on it for strength. It may have an eagle. It's still basically in the same shape, but it has a different connotation. But when you get it all decorated with special marks and things like that, they need to be interpreted by someone who knows. So the idea is to ask what this means. Now sometimes they're so sacred that it can't be spoken about. You actually have to have some standing in the community before you could become a knowledge holder of learning those things. With my art, the great kauri art it's experiential art. You don't just visually look at it, you touch it and you feel it. And I say if you touch it, it'll touch you back. And maybe it'll reflect that beauty that's within you back to you. I have people come in from all over the world that they come from a place where you're not only allowed to look and not touch, and when they find out that they can touch the art, they're almost hesitant when they reach for it to touch. And so I remember one old darling from Germany, I took her hand and I put it on the work, and she said, "Oh, I have wanted my whole life to rub a sculpture." I says, "Well, here you are, you can hug them, you can kiss them, you can do whatever you like." And it was profound for her. And she had her family bring her back every day for a week. I wanted to communicate the spirituality of man. And when I say you touch it, it'll touch you back. It does. But what it does is that you suddenly realise, oh, it's not just a piece of wood. It's actually art. And when I'm teaching my young carvers and my sculptors how to carve, I said, run your hand over your body. Just feel how your chest runs under your hand, how your elbow is, how the muscles in your arm are, your shoulder, your face. You know, like if you're carving a face, the quickest way to do it is look in a mirror, but if you feel how it is, and then feel what you're carving, it actually comes alive, like the pregnant woman out there. The amount of people that hug her and are profoundly affected by her. And we call her Wakatangata, the vessel of mankind. Yes, it is a spiritual experience, but I don't mean that lightning strikes and God appears to you and says, "And now you will have a spiritual experience." I believe that spiritual experience is when you experience something outside the physical universe. So when you touch it, that's in the physical universe. But what happens within you is communicated in the non-physical back to you as a life force, as a being.
This is the story of Rata, who wanted to cut down a totara tree, but had not asked permission from Tane Mahuta, Lord of the Forest. Long ago, Rata was wandering sadly along the bank of a stream, thinking about his father, who had just died. I must bring him back home, he thought. But how am I going to do that? He stared at the trees in the forest and said to himself, I need a waka, a canoe. Early next morning, Rata returned to the forest and chopped down the totara tree. But when he came back the day after, the tree was no longer lying on the ground. He looked around and recognised his tree. It stood proud again, as if it had never been felled. Rata was puzzled, but he decided to chop the tree down again. The following morning he found it again standing tall and silent. Rata felled the tree for the third time, trimming the trunk and scooping out the inside to form a canoe. He decided to come back at night to see what was happening. As he approached, he could see light shining through the trees. To his amazement, he saw that birds and insects were reassembling the tree to return it to its original state. Rata stood up and stepped into the light. But as he did so, the light went out. Rata was alone. Please forgive me, he whispered. I'm sorry I cut down the totara tree. I just wanted to build a canoe to bring back my father. He began to lift a heavy trunk. I shall never cut down another tree again, vowed Rata. You may, said a voice close to him, but you must ask Tane Mahuta, Lord of the Forest, for permission. As Rata prepared to leave, his heart leapt as he saw a ready canoe lying in front of him. Mine? He whispered. Yes, replied the voice. Rata's waka.
And they say that the birds tell the trees what's going on elsewhere, so the trees know everything. Now the old story, the old myth about the kauri tree was they were called the Watcher, and they stood there for so long they knew everything that happened in the last 1,000 years or 3,000 years. Trees may not be mobile, but I believe they are a life force in themselves. And we have our god of the forest, and we call him Tani. But Tani also means man. But the amount of people that have gone up and just been overawed and have felt the power and the majestic nature of Tani is huge. He's probably the most visited tree on the planet. But truly, he's a reminder that we as mankind are the guardians. It's up to each and every one of us to protect our land. Most of us are in apathy about what we can do. When we see great, huge corporations, oil corporations, and we're saying, no, that's our land, you can't drill on it. And we end up trying to protest in frustration at what they're doing, because their God is money, is control, is power. We don't need that. We have community. We have the love of our fellows. But that's seeing as being weak. These great trees learnt to live in harmony with their environment, and that's something that man doesn't do. He actually controls and changes his environment. And the great kauri, it's under threat now with a disease called dieback. The kauri is diminishing at a huge rate. Forests like this take thousands of years to establish. If we don't have these green trees growing, you're lost. When you come to a place of beauty, your mind stops from all the whizzing traffic and all the whistles and sirens, and you can be still. And a lot of people have gone in there and gone, wow, I can actually communicate with something bigger than me. It may not be true, but if you feel that way in a place where you can be still, then it is sacred.
It is said that Kupe was the first man to discover Aotearoa. He was a fisherman from Hawaii. When the moon and tides were right, the fishermen headed out to sea and always returned with waka laden with fish. One morning the fishermen lowered their lines, but they didn't catch a single fish. The same thing happened the following day and the day after. Kupe committed himself to finding out what had happened. Next time fishing, he discovered a slimy substance covering his hook. An octopus, he thought. Kupe gathered his people, built a large ocean canoe, and set out on a long journey. He chased the octopus for weeks across the Pacific Ocean. He was running out of supplies when one morning they saw a long cloud in the distance, a sign that land was near. Kupe's wife Hine was watching the horizon, and she called, "Heiau, Heiau, Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud." Kupe and his people were amazed by the beauty of the new land they'd discovered. They thought, so the stories we've been told as children of Maui fishing a great land from the sea were all true.
I'm very privileged because I get tours coming here from all over the world on that experience to learn and to feel what they can't get in their homeland. It's only faraway legends, whereas here you're living the legend. And the thing is, I'm not saying we're any better, I'm just saying we haven't forgotten yet.